Hey guys, tonight we are going back to the very beginning. Or rather, what we think it is the beginning. What if the first words humanity ever wrote weren't myths? What if they were the desperate testimony of survivors trying to record a world that had already ended? So dim the lights. Maybe let the room go quiet enough to hear your own breathing. Let the soft hum of the night envelop you. Close your eyes or let your gaze soften, unfocused, as we drift not into a desert, but into the deep, ancient waters of memory. Drop a comment telling me where you are in the dark right now. I like to picture these stories stretching across time zones, across continents, while you drift towards sleep. Imagine these words as threads connecting us through the quiet of the night across the vast oceans of history, but with a dream, a universal dream, etched deep into the collective subconscious of humanity, a story that ripples through every culture, every ancient tongue, every whispered legend. It is the dream of water, not just a gentle rain, not a passing storm, but an endless deluge, a world consumed by the deep. Imagine, for a moment, that outside your window the rain has been falling for 1,000 years. Not torrential, but persistent. A steady, rhythmic hush that has become the only sound the world knows. The very air around you is thick with moisture, cool and cleansing. Every surface glistens. Every sound is muffled, softened, absorbed by the ceaseless patter. This isn't a threat. It is a cocoon, a warm, safe enclosure against a world dissolving into liquid silence. This isn't just a fantasy. It's an echo found in the Sumerian clay tablets where Utnapishtim builds his ark guided by a god. It's in the biblical account of Noah, the 40 days and 40 nights that reshaped the earth. It's in the Hindu Puranas, where Manu is saved by Vishnu in the form of a great fish. It's woven into the fabric of Native American tales, from the Cherokee to the Hopi. Speaking of a time when the waters rose and cleansed the land, the ancient Maya and Aztec civilizations also speak of a cosmic flood that ended a previous age, forcing a reset. From the Aboriginal Dreamtime stories in Australia to the Greek myth of Deucalion and Pyrrha, the narrative is startlingly consistent: a great flood, a near total destruction, and a few survivors tasked with beginning again. These aren't isolated coincidences. They are the fragmented pieces of a shared memory, a trauma perhaps so profound that it transcended language and geography, embedding itself into the very core of human storytelling. Picture each myth as a tiny, fragile boat, launched onto the vast ocean of time, carrying the same precious cargo, the memory of a world drowned. Feel the rhythm of the rain, the soft, persistent drumming against the roof of your imagination. Let it wash away the edges of your day, smoothing over worries, silencing the clamor. This ancient rain is not here to destroy, but to embrace, to hold you gently within its endless, murmuring embrace. The world outside may be dissolving into a watery expanse, but here, in this quiet space you've created, you are safe. You are warm. You are held. The sound of the water is a lullaby, a timeless hum that has accompanied humanity's dreams for millennia. It is the sound of the world being reborn, slowly, quietly, beneath a blanket of endless soft gray. Let the deep, resonant hum of that ancient water carry you deeper into this shared dream, into this collective memory that lives on, not in books, but in the quiet spaces of your mind. Let us shift our gaze from the mythical waters to the geological. From the dream of a deluge to the stark, undeniable reality of a planet in flux. Imagine, if you will, a map of the Earth not as it is today, but as it was some 12,000 years ago. This was the twilight of the last great ice age, a time of immense, grinding glaciers that held vast quantities of the world's water captive. The effect was profound. Global sea levels were not just a little lower. They were, on average, a staggering 400 feet, or roughly 120 meters below where they are now. Picture that, 400 feet. That is the height of a 40-story building. Imagine the sheer volume of land that would be exposed if the oceans receded by that much. The coastlines we know today, the familiar contours of continents, simply did not exist. They were stretched, expanded, revealing vast, fertile plains and land bridges that now lie submerged beneath miles of silent water. Consider Doggerland. Today, it's a cold, shallow expanse of the North Sea, separating the United Kingdom from continental Europe. But 12,000 years ago, Doggerland was not a sea. It was a sprawling, habitable landmass, a sunken world of rolling hills, dense forests, winding rivers, and freshwater lakes. It was a hunting ground, a migratory path, a home. Early humans walked across it, fished in its rivers, built their temporary shelters on its plains. You could have walked from what is now Scotland, across this vast, green expanse, all the way to modern-day Denmark. Imagine the smell of pine needles, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of mammoths, the murmur of ancient human voices carried on the wind across a landscape that is now utterly gone, swallowed by the waves. And then stretch your imagination further to the southeast. Picture Sundalam. Today, it is a scatter of islands, Sami, Borneo, Java, Sumatra separated by vast stretches of the South China Sea. But in that distant past, Sundaland was a colossal tropical continent, a gigantic land bridge teeming with life, connecting what is now mainland Asia to these islands. It was a lush, verdant paradise, crisscrossed by mighty rivers, home to unique ecosystems, and undoubtedly to thriving human populations. Imagine walking through its dense, ancient jungles, the air thick with the scent of exotic flowers, the sounds of unseen creatures, the feeling of damp earth beneath your bare feet. This was not a collection of islands. It was a continuous landmass, a vast, unbroken realm, a cradle of civilization perhaps, now lying silent and dark beneath the waves. These aren't abstract geological facts. These are lost worlds, entire landscapes, entire ecosystems, entire human histories, now buried under the crushing weight of the ocean. Think of the sheer scale of the displacement. Not just small islands, but vast continents of land, suddenly irrevocably vanishing. The very definition of shoreline was rewritten. What we perceive as the eternal, unchanging blue of the ocean was once dry land, their homes, their hunting grounds. Feel the immense weight of that vanished world, the quiet pressure of untold tons of water pressing down on forgotten forests, on submerged riverbeds, on the ghost towns of ancient human settlements. The silence of the deep is not empty. It is filled with the echoes of a world that once breathed, a world that once thrived, a world that was simply erased. The lost coastlines are not just lines on a map. They are the scars of a planetary transformation, a reminder of how profoundly fragile our familiar world truly is. Let the quiet immensity of these lost lands, these submerged histories settle over you, a profound sense of the deep, slow pulse of the earth itself. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Now, let us turn our attention to a name that evokes both wonder and skepticism: Atlantis. For many, it is a fable, a cartoon, a fantastical kingdom of mermaids and magic. But what if we approach it not as a myth, but as a time capsule? A deliberate, philosophical attempt to preserve a memory, a warning from a distant past. Our primary source for Atlantis is Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher. And here is the crucial point. Plato didn't invent Atlantis. He presented it as a serious historical account passed down through generations. He explicitly states that the story came to him through his ancestor, Solon, the revered Athenian statesman, who in turn heard it from Egyptian priests during his travels. These priests, masters of ancient knowledge, claimed to possess records far older than anything known in Greece. They spoke of a powerful island kingdom, situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we know today as the Strait of Gibraltar, a civilization of immense wealth, advanced technology, and formidable naval power. Plato describes Atlantis in vivid detail. Its magnificent capital city, with concentric rings of land and water, its advanced engineering, its complex canal systems, its rich mineral resources, and its highly organized society. They were, he wrote, a people of great virtue and wisdom, until hubris and greed corrupted them. And then in a single terrible day and night, Atlantis was swallowed by the sea, vanishing beneath the waves in a catastrophic event. But here is where the story truly becomes profound, truly begins to intertwine with the geological realities we've just explored. Plato, through the voice of the Egyptian priests, gives us a precise timeline. They told Solon that the destruction of Atlantis occurred 9,000 years before the time of Solon. Solon lived around 600 BCE. So, if we do the math, 9,000 years before 600 BCE places the destruction of Atlantis squarely around 9,600 BCE. Pause for a moment and let that date resonate. 9,600 BCE. What was happening on Earth around 9,600 BCE? That date is not some arbitrary number pulled from thin air. It is, almost to the year, the widely accepted end date of the Younger Dryas period. It is the moment when the last great ice age came to its abrupt and cataclysmic conclusion. It is precisely the time when global temperatures rose dramatically, when the colossal ice sheets began to melt at an unprecedented rate, and when sea levels surged by hundreds of feet, inundating vast land masses like Doggerland and Sundaland. Is this a mere coincidence that a philosopher relaying an ancient Egyptian account would pinpoint the destruction of a powerful maritime civilization to the exact geological moment when the world's coastlines were being violently reshaped by colossal floods? Or is it something more? Is Plato's Atlantis not a myth, but a garbled philosophical echo of a real catastrophe? A memory meticulously preserved by a priestly caste of a world that truly existed and truly vanished precisely when the waters rose. Feel the weight of that question, the quiet tremor of possibility. Atlantis in this light is not a children's story, but a profound historical riddle, a philosophical time capsule launched from the distant past, carrying a message that we are only now, with the tools of modern geology and archaeology, beginning to decipher. It suggests that perhaps, just perhaps, Humanity's deepest collective dream of a great flood is not a dream at all, but a memory. A memory of a civilization, perhaps more advanced than we give ancient peoples credit for, that was indeed swallowed by the deep, leaving only a whisper of its existence in the pages of a philosopher's text and in the submerged landscapes of our planet. Let the quiet enigma of Atlantis, its precise timing, its tragic end drift through your thoughts, a profound question mark hanging silently in the deep, still air. Now, let your mind drift further, across the vast, ancient plains of Anatolia. Picture yourself standing on a windswept plateau in southeastern Turkey, beneath a sky that feels impossibly wide and deep, filled with stars that seem to hum with a forgotten song. Before you, rising from the earth like the petrified bones of giants, are the megalithic circles of Göbekli Tepe. This is a place that rewrites history, not with words, but with stone. Imagine the sheer scale of it. Massive T-shaped pillars, some weighing up to 60 tons, standing upright, forming intricate enclosures. They are adorned with exquisite carvings, wild boars, foxes, snakes, scorpions, ducks, gazelles, and a menagerie of other creatures, all rendered with a breathtaking realism and artistic sophistication. These aren't crude stick figures. These are masterpieces of prehistoric art, etched into the very fabric of the stones with a precision that defies explanation for their supposed era. What makes Göbekli Tepe so profoundly unsettling, so utterly perplexing, is its age. Mainstream archaeology tells us that these structures were built around 9600 BC, at the very end of the Younger Dryas period, precisely when the Great Flood narratives conclude, when the world was supposedly emerging from a catastrophic ice age. This timing is critical. According to conventional timelines, this was a time of hunter-gatherers, nomadic tribes scraping by, living hand to mouth. They had no agriculture, no settled communities, no metal tools, no pottery. Yet, here stands Göbekli Tepe, a monumental complex that would have required hundreds, if not thousands, of organized laborers, skilled stonemasons, and a sophisticated understanding of engineering and planning. The sheer effort involved in quarrying these massive pillars from bedrock, transporting them sometimes hundreds of yards, and then raising them into position is staggering. It speaks of a level of social organization, a specialized workforce, and a shared purpose that simply shouldn't exist in the paradigm of hunter-gatherer societies. It's like finding a supercomputer in a caveman's dwelling. Think about the implications. If these were hunter-gatherers, where did they learn to cut and shape such colossal stones with such artistry? Where did they develop the astronomical knowledge suggested by the alignment of some of the pillars? The very existence of Göbekli Tepe forces a radical question. What if these people weren't inventing this technology, but rather inheriting? What if they weren't creating something new, but desperately restoring creating something that had been lost? The carvings themselves are intriguing. Many of the animals depicted are not simply decorative. They appear to be part of a larger narrative, perhaps a cosmic story, or even a record of celestial events. Some researchers suggest that the pillar known as the vulture stone might even be a pictographic record of a catastrophic cometary impact event that occurred during the Younger Dryas period, the very event that could have triggered the Great Flood. If true, these stones aren't just temples. They are a warning, a memorial, a time capsule etched in granite. Imagine the scene, a desperate remnant of a once great civilization, scattered and disoriented by global cataclysm, emerging from caves or temporary shelters into a shattered world. They look around at the ruins of their past, at the drowned lands of forgotten knowledge, and they decide, with what few skills and memories they retain, to build something, not a new city, but a sanctuary. A place to preserve what little they remember, a place to tell a story to a future that might not even understand it. Göbekli Tepe feels less like a beginning and more like an echo of a highly advanced culture that existed to die before. The flood, whose survivors carried their knowledge and skills into a devastated world. They didn't build the pyramids, perhaps, but they built this. They didn't invent writing, but they perfected a language of stone. They didn't discover the stars, but they remembered their ancient paths. The structures are not just monuments. They are a testament to human resilience, and perhaps to human amnesia. The air here is dry and crisp, carrying the scent of ancient dust and the silent weight of millennia. The stones themselves seem to absorb the light, holding on to secrets. As you trace the outline of a carved snake with your mind's eye, you can almost feel the rough texture beneath your fingertips, the cold permanence of the rock. The silence here is profound, broken only by the whispers of the wind, carrying stories that the stones refuse to fully articulate. This isn't a place of joyful creation. It is a place of solemn remembrance, a desperate attempt to hold onto the fragments of a shattered world. The people who built this were not just building a temple. They were rebuilding memory itself, stone by painstaking stone, hoping that someone someday would remember what they had lost. From the wind-swept plains of Anatolia, let your thoughts drift southwest across the Mediterranean to the sun-drenched sands of Egypt. Here, on the ancient Giza Plateau, stands one of the world's most enduring and enigmatic monuments, the Great Sphinx. Its colossal form, part lion, part human, gazes eastward with an inscrutable expression, a silent sentinel guarding secrets whispered across millennia. For generations, we've been told the Sphinx was built by Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BC to guard his pyramid. This is the accepted narrative etched into history books and tourist guides. But what if the Sphinx holds a much, much older secret? What if its weathered body bears the scars of a time long before the pharaohs? A time when the very landscape of Egypt was dramatically different. Draw your attention not to its imposing face, but to its body, particularly the flanks of the lion. Look closely at the deep, undulating channels and vertical fissures carved into the limestone. These aren't the smooth, wind-blown abrasions you'd expect from millennia of desert sand and wind. Instead, they bear the unmistakable signature of heavy, prolonged rainfall. These are the scars of water erosion. Consider what this means. Egypt today is an arid desert. It receives negligible rainfall. For the Sphinx to have been eroded by water to this extent, it would have had to stand through an era when the Giza Plateau was not a desert, but a lush, tropical landscape, subjected to torrential downpours for thousands of years. Geologists and climatologists confirm that such a period existed in Egypt, but it ended roughly 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, coinciding with the end of the last ice age and the Younger Dryas event. This geological evidence is difficult to reconcile with the conventional dating. If the Sphinx was carved around 2500 BC, it would have been exposed to a desert climate for its entire existence. Wind and sand cause horizontal erosion, undercutting, and pitting fouet, not the deep vertical gullying we observe. The patterns on the Sphinx are precisely what you would expect to see on a rock face exposed to heavy rain for an extended period. Imagine the Giza Plateau, not as a sea of golden sand, but as a verdant savanna crisscrossed by rivers, teeming with wildlife. The Nile would have been a mighty, sprawling waterway, and the air thick with humidity. It is in this forgotten primordial Egypt that the Sphinx's scars begin to make sense. This suggests an age for the Sphinx that is thousands of years older than traditionally accepted, an age that aligns eerily with the global cataclysm of the Younger Dryas, with the melting ice sheets, and with the Great Flood narratives. Could the Sphinx be a survivor, a silent witness to that lost world? Could it have stood through the very deluge that wiped clean the slate of human civilization? The thought is both humbling and profound. It transforms the Sphinx from a mere pharaonic monument into a monumental time capsule, a geological clock whose eroded surface tells a story far grander and more ancient than any papyrus scroll. It becomes a testament to an unknown civilization, one capable of carving such an immense and enduring structure at a time when we believe humanity was just beginning to emerge from crude Stone Age existence. The limestone of the Sphinx is a soft, porous rock. Its degradation over such a vast span of time, especially with the added stress of a tropical climate, is a miracle in itself. It's as if its creators intended it to last, to stand as a beacon across the ages, its message etched not in hieroglyphs, but in the very erosion of its form. The sheer scale and precision of its construction, even if we account for a more ancient date, still speak of a highly sophisticated culture. As you contemplate the Sphinx, feel the dry desert air on your skin, the subtle grit of sand. But try to imagine, beneath that present dryness, the ghost of ancient rainfall, the relentless drumming of water on stone, slowly, patiently, revealing a truth that time had tried to bury. The Sphinx doesn't just stare into the east, it stares into the deep past, a silent, weathered guardian of a world we've forgotten. Its worn face, its damaged nose, its missing beard turi. These are not just the ravages of time and human interference. They are the echoes of storms, of climatic shifts, of a planetary upheaval that reshaped continents and erased civilizations. The Sphinx remembers. Its very stone speaks of water, of rain, of a time when the world was washed clean. And in its quiet endurance, it asks us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the dawn of human history. Now, let your mind turn from the physical monuments to something more ephemeral, yet equally profound: ancient maps. Imagine holding in your hands a fragile piece of parchment, its edges softened by centuries, its surface covered with faded ink lines that trace coastlines and continents. These aren't just any maps. These are maps that shouldn't exist. Consider the Piri-Reis map dated to 1513. It's a fascinating document, compiled by an Ottoman admiral, Piri-Reis, from a collection of much older source maps. What makes it extraordinary is its depiction of the coastlines of West Africa, South America, and most controversially, Antarctica. But not Antarctica as we know it today. This map shows the coastline of Antarctica free of iced tea. The continent of Antarctica has been covered by a massive ice sheet for at least 12,000 years, and much longer in some regions. It wasn't until the 1940s, with sophisticated seismic sounding equipment and aerial surveys, that we were able to accurately chart the landmass beneath the ice. Yet, the Piri-Reis map, created centuries before any modern exploration of Antarctica, depicts what appear to be its coastal mountains and rivers, as if someone had sailed along its shores and meticulously charted them. How is this possible? Who, in the distant past, possessed the technology and the global reach to survey a continent that would remain hidden beneath miles of ice for millennia? The map also displays remarkably accurate longitudes, a feat that wouldn't be reliably achieved until the 18th century with the invention of precise chronometers. It's as if the cartographers had access to a level of geographic knowledge and navigational skill that far surpassed anything known in the 16th century, or even much later. Then there is the Orontius Phineas map, created in 1531. This map, too, depicts an ice-free Antarctica, complete with mountain ranges, valleys, and rivers. Its shape, when projected onto a modern globe, shows a striking resemblance to the subglacial topography revealed by modern surveys. It depicts the continent as a series of landmasses, separated by waterways, which aligns with the current understanding of the continent's underlying geology. Again, the question arises, how could a 16th century cartographer have such detailed knowledge of a landmass hidden beneath miles of ice? These maps are not anomalies. They are echoes, fragments of a lost cartographic tradition, hinting at a global seafaring civilization that existed at a time when our history books tell us humanity was still struggling with rudimentary boats. They suggest a world where ancient mariners, perhaps using sophisticated navigational instruments now lost to time, sailed the entire planet, charting its coastlines, even those of a continent that would soon be swallowed by ice. Imagine the vessels, not the small coastal rafts we associate with early humans, but robust, ocean-going ships capable of enduring the fierce storms of the southern oceans. Imagine the cartographers meticulously recording latitudes and longitudes, perhaps using astronomical observations or forgotten technologies to achieve an accuracy that would astound their future descendants. These weren't just local explorers, they were global surveyors, mapping a world that was on the brink of profound change. The implications are breathtaking. These maps suggest that before the last ice age ended, before the Younger Dryas impact, before the great floods reshaped the continents, there was a civilization with a global reach, a sophisticated understanding of geography, and the means to explore every corner of the earth. They were not just surviving, they were thriving, navigating, and documenting. The Piri-Reis and Orontius Phineas maps are like messages in a bottle, cast into the ocean of time by a forgotten people. They washed ashore centuries later, baffling those who found them, hinting at a world that existed beyond the veil of our collective memory. They challenge us to reconsider the timeline of human technological development and exploration. They whisper of a time when the world was a different place, and when humanity possessed knowledge that we are only now beginning to rediscover. Feel the thin, almost brittle texture of the old paper in your mind's eye, the faint scent of age and ink. The lines drawn with such confidence, depicting a world that should have been unknown. It is a quiet challenge, a silent defiance of our accepted history. These maps are not mistakes or fabrications. They are puzzles, waiting for us to reassemble a picture of a lost world, a world where the impossible was once simply reality. They remind us that our understanding of the past is often incomplete, like a faded map with crucial sections torn away, leaving us to guess at the contours of a forgotten land. And as you gaze upon these impossible maps, you can almost hear the lapping of ancient waves against an ice-free shore, the creak of wooden ships, and the hushed voices of navigators who saw the world as a whole long before we thought it possible. Imagine the cool, crushing embrace of the deep ocean. The pressure here is immense, a constant, silent weight that would flatten anything not built to withstand it. Yet, beneath these vast, indifferent waters, lie structures that defy the very notion of what we thought was possible. Let your mind descend now, past the dappled light of the surface, through layers of deepening blue, until only the most muted light filters down, painting the world in shades of indigo and twilight. Here, at the very edge of human comprehension, rests Yonaguni, off the coast of Japan, submerged beneath the churning currents, is a colossal monument. It is not a natural formation, say those who have dived there, not merely rock shaped by the endless erosion of the sea. Instead, it looks like a stepped pyramid, with perfectly straight edges, sharp angles, and flat surfaces that suggest deliberate carving, intentional design. Imagine vast stone terraces, wide staircases leading to nowhere, but the silent, empty water, and what appear to be carved pathways, and even a massive stone archway, all resting on the seabed as if a city simply slipped. Picture schools of finish, shimmering silver and iridescent blue, weaving silently through these ancient halls. They are the only inhabitants now, swimming through what might have once been streets, past what might have been temples. The silence is profound down here, broken only by the distant hum of the ocean's currents, a deep, resonant white noise that cradles these forgotten stones. No wind howls, no dust blows, only the ceaseless gentle flow of water, slowly smoothing every edge, slowly reclaiming every surface. Further west, beneath the Arabian Sea, near the coast of India, another silent sleeper waits, Dwarka. For centuries, texts like the Mahabharata spoke of a magnificent city built by Lord Krishna that was swallowed by the sea. For a long time, it was dismissed as myth, a fanciful tale. But in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, marine archaeologists began to find something remarkable. At depths of over 100 feet, they discovered organized stone structures, grid patterns of streets, massive pillars, and even artifacts like pottery and seals, all submerged. These aren't scattered rocks. They are the coherent remains of a sophisticated city, perfectly aligned, perfectly planned. The water down here is murky, visibility limited, lending an even greater sense of mystery to these ruins. It's as if the ocean itself is guarding its secrets, allowing only glimpses of what once was. Think of the immense effort, the incredible technology required to build such cities, not just to live in them, but for them to be so perfectly preserved in their watery tombs. Who were these people? What were their lives like? And what catastrophic event could have plunged entire metropolises beneath the waves, leaving them to sleep for millennia in the deep blue? Their stories whispered only by the currents. The sheer scale of these underwater structures, their geometric precision, the evidence of advanced engineering, all speak of a civilization far beyond what conventional history allows for that period. They are not merely ruins. They are time capsules, perfectly preserved by the ocean's chill, waiting for us to remember how to read them. They hum with a silent energy, a memory of life and light, now bathed in the eternal twilight of the deep. It is a place where time slows, where the past feels not distant, but merely dormant, resting, waiting for the tide to turn once more. Now, let your mind drift from the deep, cool silence of the ocean floor, and ascend back through the waters, through the layers of time, to the dusty surface of the earth. Picture the ancient world, a tapestry woven with countless threads of myth and legend. And within this tapestry, a peculiar recurring motif emerges. A subtle detail that, once noticed, appears almost everywhere you look. Imagine figures from different epochs, different continents, separated by vast oceans and millennia, yet sharing a single, curious accessory. We're talking about the gods with handbags. Consider the Apkallu of ancient Sumeria. These are often depicted as wise, fish-headed beings or sometimes human-like figures with bird heads. They are the bringers of civilization, the teachers of humanity after the Great Flood. And in many of these depictions, etched into clay tablets or carved into massive stone reliefs, they carry a small rectangular object in their hand. It looks remarkably like a modern-day briefcase or a handbag. It's always there, held with purpose, an integral part of their iconography. What is inside that bag? Now, journey across the world to the high, windswept plateaus of the Andes. Here, at sites like Tiwanaku and Puma Punku, we encounter Viracocha, the great creator god of the Inca and pre-Inca peoples. He is often portrayed as a majestic figure, holding a staff in each hand, but sometimes, particularly in older depictions, he too is shown with a similar small rectangular object, a handbag. The same mysterious item thousands of miles away in a completely different cultural context. Even back in Anatolia and Göbekli Tepe, among the oldest megalithic structures on Earth, some of the carved figures, abstract and ancient, subtly hint at this same motif. They are not as clear as the Sumerian or Andean examples, but the suggestion is there, a shared visual language across an impossible gulf of time and geography. What could this ubiquitous handbag represent? It's too specific, too consistent, to be a mere artistic coincidence. It isn't a weapon or a tool for farming or an item of adornment. It holds a different kind of significance. Perhaps these figures, these gods or teachers, were not supernatural beings in the way we understand them. Perhaps they were the survivors, the remnants of that earlier, advanced civilization flung across a world devastated by catastrophe. And in those handbags, they carried the seeds of what was lost. Not gold, not jewels, but knowledge. The blueprints for rebuilding, the understanding of agriculture, the principles of astronomy, the laws of governance, the secrets of metallurgy, the very essence of how to restart a broken world. Think of it as a civilization's emergency kit, a portable library of essential information, a seed vault for human ingenuity, carried by those who remembered a time before the deluge. They weren't creating, they were restoring. They weren't inventing, they were remembering and teaching what had been forgotten. They were the living memory of a world that had ended, trying to pass on its legacy to a bewildered, traumatized humanity. This image of the handbag transforms these mythical figures from magical deities into something more profound, reluctant engineers, weary archivists, carrying the fragile flame of civilization through the long night of a post-cataclysmic world. They were the ones who knew how to measure the stars, how to carve stone with impossible precision, how to organize society, because they had seen it done before, and they carried the instructions with them in those small, unassuming bags across continents and generations, hoping that humanity would listen and remember. It is a subtle whisper from the past, a silent symbol of transmission, a quiet testament to the resilience of knowledge, even in the face of utter destruction. The gods with handbags are not just figures of myth. They are the echoes of a desperate global effort to salvage what could be saved, to rebuild what had been shattered. They are the quiet carriers of memory, reminding us that every new beginning often carries the faint blueprint of what came before. Now, let the image of these silent teachers and their mysterious bags fade, and turn your attention to the sky. Not the gentle star-dusted sky of a quiet night, but the sky as it might have appeared on a day that changed everything. Imagine a time roughly 12,800 years ago. The Earth is still largely covered in vast sheets of ice, a remnant of the last glacial maximum. Giant megafauna roam the cold plains. Humanity, though spread across the continents, lives a challenging existence. And then, without warning, the sky falls. This isn't a poetic metaphor. It is a scientific hypothesis known as the Younger Dryas Impact Theory. Picture this, not a single massive asteroid, but a swarm of cometary fragments, perhaps tens or hundreds of them, streaking through the atmosphere. They are not aimed at a populated city, but at the Laurentide ice sheet, a colossal expanse of ice covering much of North America, miles thick. There is no sound to describe the impact itself, not in the way we understand sound. Instead, visualize the immediate, colossal consequences. The ice sheet, already under immense stress, shatters. The sheer kinetic energy instantly melts trillions of tons of ice, not over centuries, but in moments. This isn't a gentle thaw. It is an explosive, unprecedented release of water. The result is a cataclysmic surge in sea levels, not the slow creeping rise we worry about today, but a sudden, violent displacement. Imagine coastlines being swallowed in a blink, entire low-lying landmasses disappearing beneath a wall of water. The sheer volume of melted ice, combined with the impact itself, creates a global tsunami, a wave of oblivion that sweeps across continents, reshaping coastlines, erasing settlements, leaving nothing but mud and memory in its wake. But the water is only one part of the story. The impacts also throw immense quantities of dust, debris, and vaporized rock into the atmosphere. The sun, once a comforting presence, becomes a distant, muted glow, struggling to penetrate the thick veil of particulate matter. This isn't just a temporary darkening. It's a global winter, an impact winter that plunges the planet back into an ice age. Like state, a period known as the Younger Dryas. Temperatures plummet, crops fail, and life struggles to adapt to a world suddenly transformed. The consequences for any advanced civilization, one perhaps already grappling with the receding ice age and shifting climates, would be devastating. Their carefully constructed coastal cities, their intricate trade routes, their agricultural heartlands, all would be obliterated by the sudden floodwaters. Their sophisticated knowledge, their intricate social structures, their very memory would be swept away by the twin forces of water and ice. This wasn't a slow decline. It was an abrupt, brutal reset. The mechanism was swift, global, and utterly merciless. The Earth, in a cosmic blink, was cleansed. The impact scars, though debated, are still being sought in geological layers, in microspherules and platinum anomalies found across continents. Tiny echoes of a truly catastrophic day. It wasn't just a flood, it was the day the sky fell, initiating a chain reaction that reshaped the planet and rewrote the story of humanity. A silent cosmic punctuation mark, bringing an end to one chapter and forcing the survivors to begin anew, in a world utterly alien to the one they had known. The memory of that day, of the sky falling and the waters rising, would be etched deep into the collective unconscious, passed down through generations, not as science, but as myth, as the story of the Great Flood. We are left in this silence, aren't we? This quiet aftermath, a world rebuilt atop forgotten foundations. Graham Hancock, a guide through these ancient whispers, calls us a species with amnesia. Imagine that. We woke up, perhaps, in a vast ruined garden, scattered with the magnificent, intricate toys of our ancestors, the pyramids, the megalithic structures of Malta, the intricate carvings of a lost knowledge. We pick them up, turn them over in our hands, marvel at their impossible precision, their sheer scale. But we don't remember how they worked. We don't remember the intricate instructions, the purpose, the grand design. You can almost feel the dust settling on those ancient mechanisms, the gears seizing up in the long centuries of disuse. We see a clock, but we've forgotten how to wind it. We find a map, but the cities it depicts are now beneath the waves or buried under millennia of sand. There is a profound loneliness in this amnesia, a sense of being an orphan on our own planet, surrounded by the ghosts of what we once were, or what someone before us was. This feeling, this quiet ache of not knowing, can settle deep within you. It is the same feeling you get when you walk through an empty grand old house, imagining the lives that once filled its rooms, the conversations that echoed in its halls. The echoes are there, faint, distorted, but undeniably present. They suggest a story, a history far grander and more complex than the simple narratives we tell ourselves. It's a story of sophisticated understanding, of a global network, of a time when the stars were not just points of light, but a cosmic clock, a calendar, a guide, and then the quiet, the sudden, overwhelming quiet after a cataclysm, the survivors, few and scattered, picking through the wreckage. They carried what they could soon be, not gold or jewels, but the fragments of knowledge, the seeds of a new beginning. They tried to tell the story, to rebuild, to pass on what they remembered of the world that was. But so much was lost, so much was simply forgotten. Like a dream that slips away the moment you try to grasp it, leaving only a vague, beautiful sadness. Those scattered survivors, walking through a world made new and terrifyingly empty, became the legends we now call gods. Picture them carrying their mysterious handbags, perhaps filled with the tools of a lost science, the seeds of forgotten agriculture, the blueprints for a new social order. They weren't performing magic. They were applying advanced understanding to a collapsed world. They arrived in disparate lands, found isolated groups, and began to teach, to guide, to reconstruct. The stories tell of them teaching metallurgy to people who had only known stone, of bringing irrigation to arid lands, of establishing ethical codes in a world stripped bare of order. Viracocha in the Andes, Quetzalcoatl in Mesoamerica, the Apkallu and Sumer Thorvin figures of immense wisdom, often depicted emerging from the water or arriving from the sea, bringing light and knowledge after a great darkness. And what did they try to tell us, those first teachers? What warnings did they carve into the hardest stone, hoping they would endure? Perhaps they spoke of the cycles of the cosmos, of the precarious balance of our planet, of the delicate interplay between sun, ice, and water. They tried to tell us that what happened once could happen again, not as a threat, but as a sober, scientific observation. The sky can fall, the water stein can rise. The earth can reset. You can almost hear their voices in the wind that whispers across the ancient sites, a low, melancholic murmur. They built their warning signs into the very landscape thinned, the impossible precision of their stonework, the astronomical alignments that track celestial events far into the future. They were trying to leave us a message, a time capsule etched in granite and basalt, hoping that one day, when enough time had passed, we would look up from our own small concerns and finally understand. It is the ultimate act of hope, isn't it? To build something so enduring, so monumental, not for themselves but for a distant, unknown future. To say, we were here, we knew things, and this is what you need to remember. A desperate attempt to defeat the greatest enemy of all, oblivion. To leave a breadcrumb trail through the vast, dark forest of time, hoping someone thousands of years later would find it and pick up the thread. And so the waters receded. The dust settled. The sun rose again on a world cleansed and scarred. New civilizations or civilizations slowly began to emerge from the mud and the memory. We built our cities again higher and grander than before, reaching for the sky with steel and glass, just as they once reached with stone and clay. We charted the stars again, rediscovered mathematics, built our own great libraries of knowledge. We forgot the warnings or dismissed them as myths, as the fanciful tales of a simpler time. But the ocean remembers. It is still there, isn't it? Watching. It laps at our shores, a constant, patient presence. It holds the secrets of the lost coastlines, the submerged cities, the forgotten histories. Its tides rise and fall, an eternal rhythm, a silent promise, and in that rhythm there is a profound peace. All our grand creations, all our towering achievements are ultimately just castles built on the sand, beautiful, intricate, full of life and ambition. But the tide, the slow, inexorable tide of time and geological change, will eventually come for them all. It will smooth away the sharp edges, reclaim the intricate details, until all that remains is the soft, yielding curve of the beach. This isn't a terrifying thought, but perhaps the ultimate release. To imagine all the striving, all the struggle, all the building and breaking, eventually dissolving back into the vast, indifferent calm. To let go of the need to hold on, to control, to endure forever, to simply float. Let your thoughts drift now like a leaf on a slow-moving current. Feel the gentle pull, the soft sway. The world keeps turning, the tides keep flowing, and beneath it all, there is a deep, ancient quiet. A quiet that understands everything, but judges nothing. Feel that vastness, that deep, oceanic calm. It holds all memory, all forgetting, all beginnings, and all endings. History creates, water erases, and time sleeps.